Hi everybody!
Fighting games are easily some of the most fun you can have with video games. Every time you boot one up, it's a new learning experience because you're never going to have quite the same matchups even if you regularly play the same opponent. The two of you are always going to find some form of new tech to try against your opponent, and that's why fighting games, above most other genres, reward lifelong learning. However, you're never going to get the most out of your fighting games if you're playing every single fighter out there. In this video, we'll explore why you should focus on just a few fighting games. This kind of flows on from what I mentioned in the intro. You're always learning in fighting games. However, if you're constantly bouncing between different titles, you're effectively stunting your growth. If you stick with, at max, 4 different fighting games, you will see your skill set grow by leaps and bounds as you learn your characters and their matchup strengths and weaknesses. Not only that, you'll also learn when to use specific mechanics in a game and when not to. This kind of thing is what separates top tier from lower tier players. For that reason alone, it's more beneficial to stick to just a few. So if you want to get better at fighting games, stick to just 1 or 2. I've only come to realize this after becoming a more serious content creator in the FGC. If you stick to just a select few fighting games, you will get a stronger sense of community, something which is already great in fighting games. People who love fighting games are a very small community. By niching down to just a few fighting games, you'll slowly develop a greater sense of community, and this could lead to deeper friendships. If you focus on just a few fighting games, you'll slowly meet more people who either like that game or focus on that game. If you ever turn to the content creation side of fighting games, you'll also have a greater sense of knowledge to impart to your community. Basically, you'll be doubling down on the best part of fighting games. Let's face it, gaming is now an expensive hobby. Fighting games wind up being some of the most expensive games if you want to invest in all seasons of content. That's also disregarding the fact these games are typically around 89 Canadian at launch. So if you're invested in more than a handful of fighters, you're in for an expensive time. You're still in for an expensive time if you only play a few. Basically, by just limiting yourself to a few fighting games, you can use that money for other games, other interests, or more important things. If you focus on just learning a few characters in your chosen fighting game, you'll effectively become a better player by just using those individuals, since you won't have to focus on learning the inputs for so many different characters. You'll be learning the bread and butter moves of your chosen fighters far more quickly. If you master those moves, you can move on to learning more niche moves, and sometimes those lesser used moves can be the difference between winning a match or losing it. Basically, it comes down to knowledge checks, and those knowledge checks become far easier if you're able to dedicate more time to just a few games and a few characters. So this video was a little bit on the shorter side. I hope you enjoyed it. 2 of my previous videos will be popping up on screen now. Why not check them out? Until next time, keep blazing that trail.